Hi everybody, hope you all are doing well. My name is Saajid, welcome back to my channel. And welcome to the second installment in a three-part video thing that I'm doing where I wrap up all of the books that I read in 2020. So I'm talking about the 33 books that I read last year across 3 videos, and in each video I'll be talking about 11 books. So yesterday I talked about my least favorite 11 books. Today I'm going to be talking about the middle 11, so books that I really liked but that didn't quite make it to my favorites list. And then tomorrow I will be sharing my top 11 favorite books of 2020. The main thing about this video is that I will not have a lot to say about these books because they're all like my middle tier books, and most of them I don't really remember that much about, if I am to be quite honest. So this is going to be a really quick run through of the middle 11 books. In the last video we did book 33 to book 23, so we're starting off with book 22, which is American Born Chinese by Jean Luen Yang. This is a graphic novel that I actually enjoyed because it's a standalone and it's done really well. It reads like a whole complete story. I love the art, I thought the storyline and the plot was done really cleverly, and I really enjoyed the underlying message of the story as well, which is be a damn self, you know, and we need a lot more of that in today's world, don't we? I really enjoyed it, and if you like graphic novels, give this one a try if you haven't already. Number 21 is Other Words for Home by Jasmine Walker, which is a middle grade novel written in verse. I really enjoyed this. I loved the whole exploration of what home is and what constitutes home. I love all of the commentary that we got about immigration and the refugee crisis and all that kind of stuff. It was a really impactful middle grade novel that everybody should read. Number 20 is All Boys Aren't Blue by George M. Johnson, a memoir that I listened to on audio that I really enjoyed. It's about George's life growing up and navigating being a teenager at the intersection of queer and black in America. I didn't love this as much as everybody else, but I enjoyed it for what it was, and you'll be seeing it on a lot of people's favorite lists this year for valid reasons because it's really good. I also listened to the audiobook of Felix Ever After by Kaysen Calendar. I loved Hurricane Child, so when I heard about this book I was very much drawn to it and I was not disappointed. It was an excellent story. The audiobook is done well, the narrator did an exceptional job, and I really love my favorite aspect of this book is how messy it was, messy in a good way. Felix is a trans person and he really doesn't quite know where he falls in the gender spectrum. He knows that he's not the gender that he was assigned at birth, but he doesn't really identify as a man either, so it's about him sort of figuring out what his gender identity is and if a label is suitable for him. And it's also about the complexity of sexuality and relationships and friendships and how all of these things can be very blurry and vague. It's a very messy novel, but in a way that is very nuanced, and I enjoyed the way that the author explored that messiness, and I found that it was very representative of, not that I'm an expert, but very representative of a lot of young queer people's experiences. So definitely really like this one, and you will also rightfully be seeing this on a lot of people's favorite lists this year. Next up we have the first book so far in the entire series that I actually own a physical copy of, and that is The Map of Salt and Stars by Zain Jukadar. This is an adult novel that is set across the Middle East and North Africa, and we're following 2 different stories in 2 different timelines that seemingly connect. I love how it was done. I didn't love this book as much as I expected to, but I definitely thought it was really great. I listened to the audio while reading the physical copy, and this was another case of the narrator did an excellent job. And I will be reading more from Zain Jukadar in the future because although I didn't love this one, it definitely was a very insightful and thought-provoking read, so I do look forward to reading more from them. In 17th place we have Dear Haiti Love Elaine by Micah Mulit and Maritza Mulit. I think this is their debut novel. It came out maybe last year, but I read it earlier this year for Bashman Book Club and it was incredible. So not what I was expecting. I thought this was going to be like a romance. It's not. It's about this girl who is from the States and her parents are from Haiti, and they send her back there to spend some time with her aunt and her mother, and while she's there she ends up discovering some really unsettling truths about her family's past because she's from some really rich aristocratic family in Haiti, and when she finds that out it just sends her down a spiral, and then there are these kind of like speculative elements that are somewhat questionable. Like, this book is just a wild ride. Like, if you want to read a story where you have no idea what to brace yourself for, don't read the summary for this book, just pick it up and have fun. It is really one of the wildest, if not the wildest books that I read this year. We then have The Starside of Bird Hill by Naomi Jackson, which was also a Bashment Book Club read. I really enjoyed this for what it was. I didn't love it, but I liked how it was a story that kind of explored childhood and adolescence and how some children are kind of forced from a very young age to be adults because the adults in their life might either be irresponsible or might be well-meaning but just don't really have the capacity to be there for them in the way that they should be. It was a really sad yet hopeful story in a way, and I really liked it. It's set in Barbados, and it's about these two girls from Brooklyn who go back to Barbados to spend the summer with their grandmother, and it was great. Number 15 is another audiobook that I listened to, and all the audiobooks are here for some reason, but that is Know My Name by Chanel Miller, who was the woman that was raped by Brock Turner in the Stanford case that was really viral a couple of years ago. We never knew who she was until I think last year or year before when she finally came out with her memoir, and I listened to it completely on audio and I absolutely enjoyed it. She read it herself, and it was just really interesting because I remember when the case happened and everybody was so focused on Brock Turner and like this guy and on the whole situation and how wild it was, but nobody was really thinking about like what this girl was going through. And finally we get to see not only who she is, but you know, how she navigated that particular time in her life, and I love that she's just doing well now. I just love to see it. So this is a really great book, and I highly recommend that you listen to the audiobook as well. Number 14 is Hijab and Red Lipstick, which I really enjoyed. This is a book that I also didn't quite know what to expect when I was going into it. I really thought this was going to be another lighthearted story. Apparently I should probably stop thinking that about books, because every time I think this is going to be a cute, fun, like little romance you read or something, it ends up being something completely different. This book was actually really heavy, and it dealt with some very difficult topics, so definitely look into that before you pick it up. It is a story about the dangers of subscribing to really fundamental, strict Orthodox Islam, which is different from the general kind of Islam that most Muslims practice. There are obviously sub-communities of Muslims who subscribe more to the Wahhabi, Salafi strand of Islam, and that's not to judge people, but oftentimes in these communities they are very intense, they're extremely sexist, extremely patriarchal, and this book was exploring how that particular context could negatively affect the lives of women and girls, particularly our main protagonist, Sarah. What I like about the book is that the author makes sure to make clear the distinction between Islam and, you know, the religion of Islam as a faith and the general Muslim community from these more orthodox Muslim communities who warp the religion into something that serves a particular type of agenda. It was really well done, and it was an enjoyable story, and it's really quick to read, so I highly recommend it that you give it a read. It's very cheap on Kindle, like maybe $2 or $3, so definitely give this one a try. It was worth it. Number 13 is Once Upon a Need by S.K. Ali and Aisha Saeed, the most adorable middle grade novel that I read in my entire life. This is a collection of short stories that written by different Muslim authors, all about the joy and the wonders of Eid. And it's so great that we have a collection like this, because everything is just Christmas. Like, okay, cute, whatever, Christmas is fine, but like, you know, Eid is also a thing for a lot of people in the West, and I really enjoy that we finally have something to refer to if you want to consume content about Eid for children. It's fantastic, and I highly recommend not just Muslims but everybody in general read this book and get your kids a copy, because it's just wonderful and so wholesome and pure, and everybody should read it. It's great. And finally, we have a book that I talked about quite a bit this year, and that is The Henna Was by Adiba Jaigirdar. This was my most anticipated release of the year, and I thought it was going to be like my absolute favorite book of the year, but clearly it's not. But even though it isn't, it's still such a wonderful and impactful story. It's praised a lot for like its social commentary on cultural appropriation and homophobia in like brown communities and whatnot, and that's great. But what I really enjoy the most about this story is that it is a well-written young adult novel about a very flawed young girl who's honestly just confused and trying to figure out the world and trying to do her best with making mistakes. Like, I just think it's such a wholesome and pure story, and I was not disappointed in this in the least. And I really adore the author Adiba Jaigirdar as well. I had 2 interviews with her on my channel, and you could check those out if you want to, and it was really great getting to know her and getting to talk to her and getting to have more insights in the process behind how she wrote The Henna Was. So I just really enjoyed this book. I'm glad it exists, because God knows we need more stories like this, and I was so incredibly happy to see how hard the book community went for this story. A lot of people this year really liked this book, and it's another story that that's going to be on a lot of favorites lists, and I just love that. So the Henna Was, if you haven't read it, if you've been living under a rock, please fix your life and give this one a read. It's fantastic. And there you have it. Those are all of my middle tier books. That means we have one more video in this little project of mine, and that will be coming out tomorrow, and that will be my favorite books of 2020, so definitely stay tuned for that. In the comments down below, I'd love to know if you've read any of these books that I talked about today, or if you have any thoughts on them. Thank you all ever so much for watching this video. I hope you have a lovely day, and until next time, inshallah, keep reading.